What is going on, people? Thank you for tuning in once again to another episode of the Fight Maniac podcast. Thank you, all of you, for tuning in. Thank you. I appreciate all of you. As always, if you want to support your boy, all you got to do is two things. And honestly, it would help me out tremendously. All you got to do is hit the like button and hit that subscribe button. And that will help me out a lot. So thank you. Obviously, we have a lot to talk about today, man. This episode is going to be packed. We had UFC Saudi Arabia, so we're going to talk about that. Izzy getting KO'd for sure. Some of the fights were good on that, so I'll break them down. And then we're also going to talk about UFC 312, obviously, this Saturday night. Strickland versus Plessis, the rematch for the middleweight championship of the world. And we have a few fun fights in the card for that. We have Zhang Weili versus Tatiana Suarez as the co-main, also a championship fight. So that should be a fun fight as well, looking at both these ladies' records. Justin Tafa is in there too. We have a few fun fights, so we'll talk about that for sure. But yeah, man, wow. I mean, UFC Saudi Arabia. I mean, yeah, I feel like this is something that not a lot of people expected, not even myself. If you go back and watch the last week's episode, I talked about how, this should be a relatively easy fight for Adesanya, how, it's almost like a comeback fight, a tune-up fight, if you want to call it that way. So a lot of people thought about that, not even me. Like, I watched Mighty Mouse YouTube video on the fight, and he said how at the beginning of the fight, he said this should be just a tune-up fight. Or he didn't say this should be, but, he said that it was pretty much a tune-up fight for Izzy. So, I mean, again, that's what everybody thought. And, round one came along, and I thought Izzy looked pretty good. I thought he was doing a good job of kind of like going in, going out, landing some shots. Let's see. Let's look at his record here for landed. So he had... Oh, crap. No, I don't need turbo tax. Okay, here we go. So total strikes for 32. So he stayed busy because Nasruddin had only 18 total strikes out of 34. So Izzy was definitely more busy, attacking the legs and attacking the body as well. Significant strikes, he had more too. He had 26 versus 15 for Imavov. So again, just tells the story there that he was kind of just a little more active in the first round. And then, the second round comes along, and it's weird. It's so weird how things work. It's so funny. Obviously, I've seen the meme. I've seen the comparison to Boatan, right? When he got hit in the nuts, and he kind of called the ref off. 5 seconds later, he knocks out Jamal Hill. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty goddamn similar if you look at the sequences back to back. Izzy gets eye poked, but I think he pretty much walked into it. I think that's what he said. He walked into it. He told the ref, "It's all right, I'm good." 5 seconds later, he's he's knocked out. So, it's just one of those things. Like, that's such a fucking the odds of that happening for just two fighters in general, right? In the whole UFC are crazy. Now, the fact that those two fighters are Izzy and Pereira, who have history, I mean, those odds have to be crazy, right? Yeah, so I mean, obviously, terrible outcome for Izzy, catching that over right hand and just throwing him off the balance and pushing him back towards the cage, falling to the floor. And, at first, I had to watch the replay because at first I thought he only got caught with that over right hand. And then he went down, and then Imavov was kind of just ground and pounding. He didn't like nothing crazy in the ground and pound, but I was like, oh, well, and it kind of brings me to my next point, which I thought at first glance, I was like, this is kind of an early stoppage. That was kind of like my first reaction. But, I'm a little biased. I feel everybody was kind of rooting for Izzy on this one. So, everybody can be a little biased, but that was my first initial reaction. But after watching the replay, you can see clearly that Imavov lands the right. Izzy gets absolutely just bamboozled. Homie got sent to Mars. He goes down. He stumbles. He's not fully down. He's against the cage, kind of halfway down. and Imabov lands a nasty uppercut. And that's what, you didn't see a glance because it just all happened so fast. With the uppercut, then Izzy goes fully down, face down, and Imabov is on top of him, So, yeah, I mean, when you look at it that way, yeah, I think, even the commentators were saying how, like, oh, Izzy was a little upset, almost thinking, like, yeah, this was an early stoppage. But they said that, once he looks back at this replay, he might, understand why the call was stopped. And yeah, I think it was the right decision to do. It sucks for Izzy. Like, again, I don't think we would ever be in a world. If you would ask me 2-3 years ago, like, is there ever going to be a world where Izzy goes losing 3 fights in a row? I would have been like, no, absolutely not. Like, who is he? Tony Ferguson? Like, no, absolutely not. That will never happen. Even when he fought Alex Pereira the first time and he lost, everybody was like, all right, well, he bounced back real quick from that one. So to everybody, it was almost like, oh, well, that one's just not a fluke, but he lost fair and square, obviously, even though he was kind of winning the fight, the first fight, right? He was kind of winning the fight, and then he got caught, and it happens, and then he came back, and then obviously knocked out Pereira. So we're all thinking, oh, it was kind of like a fluke. And now he's going to continue to go on another reign, kind of how he was doing, right? And, ever since then, he hasn't really just been himself. So it is kind of, I guess it's fair to ask the question, like, was that series of knockouts, right? The Alex Pereira knockout, and then the Sean Strickland knockdown. It wasn't a KO, it wasn't a knockdown, though, but he got rocked. Like, are those kind of affecting him in a way of, like, not just physical, but also just mentally. Like, I'm not talking about like CTE or anything like that. Like, because you heard people say like, oh, once you get knocked out a few times, your jaw just gives away easier. Your brain shuts down easy to protect your brain. That's actually the reason why your brain shuts down, is because they're getting used to being knocked out. So they shut down for protection, actually. Or that's what I heard. I'm not a doctor. But you hear that, right? But you hear that a lot. But then you also got to wonder, like, oh, well, it has to be also some sort of psychological issue there. Because, I think he even alluded to this when I watched his interview with Ariel Helwani. He was kind of saying, like, it's just confidence. It's just remembering who I am. And, yeah, I mean, I think getting knocked out horribly and then getting knocked down and then getting submitted, I think that kind of does a lot to your confidence. It kind of diminishes it a lot. So I think that's where he's at right now. Again, it's kind of the same every time Izzy loses, except the Sean Strickland. So when he lost against Pereira the first time, when he lost against DDP, and then this one that he just lost, every time it's the same story. It's, he looked good. He looked like vintage Izzy. He had a very good first round. And then until he didn't, that's kind of the problem, that Izzy just kind of, it's making these silly little mistakes that could be avoided. He's fighting great offensively. Offensively, he was doing great against Imavov. He was doing great against DDP. And he just gets caught, and he gets punished for these mistakes. He doesn't really catch a break. A lot of other fighters make mistakes, and sometimes they just they get away with it. But for whatever reason, Izzy hasn't been able to do this. He makes a mistake and he gets caught immediately. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, you could say he has still a little bit of a glass chin now. I mean, you can kind of say that. But again, it's just not all physical. It has to be some psychological issue there. So, but yeah, man, I mean, shout out to Nasruddin Imavov. Nothing, by the way, anything I'm saying is, not taken away from Imavov's win. I mean, what a fucking performance. Again, just kind of, Izzy was a little bit more busy throughout the fight, but again, Nasruddin just knowing when to explode at the right time and when to go for that over right hand. And it worked, you know what I mean? It worked, and he defeated a huge name. He was a big underdog, not a huge underdog, but he was a big underdog. And it was obviously a huge upset, not the craziest upset of all time, especially Izzy coming out of the couple of losses. If this would have been prime Izzy, or if this would have been Izzy after defeating Strickland and DDP and Pereira, then it's a way huge, upset for sure. But it was still upset no matter what. Nasruddin, obviously, he was ranked on the top five. So I mean, that's gonna fucking catapult him to at least two or first, right? I mean, Strickland is first, and he's fighting for the title. So I mean, it kind of worked out perfectly for Nasruddin, or it would have worked out perfectly for Izzy as well, as far as timing, right? Because they just fought this past week. Regardless of who wins, we know this was a number one contender fight. Like, we know that. For obviously it was. So now the fact that, I don't know about a number one contender fight because you still have Khamzat Chimaev in that mix right there. So I don't know if this was an official number one contender fight, but it was definitely for a top spot that would have made an argument for, if for whatever reason Khamzat is not available or he's injured, then the winner of this fight could potentially take that spot without having to fight again, So it was almost like a provisional number one contender. So yeah, I mean, it kind of works out perfect timing wise. Obviously, Nasruddin wants the belt right away. He alluded to it as well, obviously. But I mean, you do gotta wonder what's going on with Khamzat. This whole thing is kind of depending on him. Like, we know we're gonna have a winner next week, regardless of who it is. I guarantee you they're not doing a rematch. If DDP wins again, you can forget about that rematch 100%. And if Sean Strickland wins, there's more argument for a rematch because they're 1-1, but just not yet. You know what I mean? Not yet. They wouldn't do that just right away, I think, unless they're desperate and they have absolutely nothing. But no, they have options. They have Khamzat, they have Nasruddin, you know what I mean? So they have some options. So they I don't think they would do a rematch if if Strickland wins. So, but at least we know we're gonna get an answer fairly shortly, because a lot of the times timing is a huge thing. Whenever we have a number one contender fight that kind of, let's say the guy that's ranked number 2 completely knocks out the guy that's ranked number 5 or something like that, right? Like sometimes the timing is an issue because the champ might be inactive at that time, or maybe he fought like 6 months ago or something like that, and he's gonna fight again next year. So now you have to wait. Sometimes you're waiting on the champ's timing. It's not really about your timing, but it's kind of waiting for that opportunity to open up. So it kind of works out perfect for Imavov, that he fights, and then right away he's getting to know the answer of at least getting a good idea of what's next. You know what I mean? And I think he has a good argument to ask for that number one spot and get the belt opportunity next. But I do think the number one contender is Khamzat Chimaev, 100%. Just because it's just been so. It's been so long and so drawn out that we've been talking about this, about Khamzat and just being super inactive and having weight issues and visa issues and sickness issues, So it's just been a long, long time that I'm like, you know what? I just want to get over with. Like, honestly, I just want to know if Khamzat can be champ. Like, we know he is a top 5 guy, top 3 guy. We know that. He proved that a while ago, in my opinion. So I think he has been ready for a number one contender fight for at least 2-3 years. Like, the fact that he still hasn't gotten a title shot is kind of crazy. But again, it just goes back to being a little bit unreliable. And obviously, just all the issues that he's had. So, but yeah, I mean, perfect timing for Nasruddin. He has an argument there. But again, I think I would like to see Khamzat first. But the timing is not bad because, listen, well, it is kind of, because Nasruddin will have to wait a long time and possibly fight again before. So I guess we'll just have to see. I mean, I wouldn't mind Nasruddin against any other, like some other top 5 fighters. Maybe like who do we have here? Whitaker, that might be good. Or maybe like but again, his argument is like, well, I just defeated the former champ, who already defeated all these other guys, so why do I have to fight again? But yeah, I mean, Izzy got caught. Sorry, I went on that long rant. Izzy got caught, and that's all she wrote. So, as far as what's next for Izzy, I mean, I know a lot of people are saying, retirement. I mean, when you look at it in that's like an easy thing to say right now, and it's obviously because he lost 3 in a row. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind if he retires, and I said this before, like if he retires, like it's okay, bro. Like, you don't owe us absolutely anything. You know, he was the most active champion in the whole UFC for years, and you know, he provided us with a lot of obviously a lot of exciting moments, a lot of great fights, and yeah, I mean, he did what he was supposed to do, and you know, you always have the risk of like, well, you're 0-3 now. You know, you're running the risk of going 0-4 and still not retiring and just diminishing your record more and more and diminishing your legacy. You know what I mean? So if you can, you know, if you can retire undefeated, obviously that's the best way to do it. But any more you lose after that, it's, you know, like I said, it diminishes your record. Again, it's kind of difficult because like he does look so good in those first rounds. He looks crisp, he looks fresh. You know, his offense is great. Maybe his defense is where he needs to improve, obviously, but like he looks good. Like he could definitely compete with some of the top guys. You know what I mean? It's just a matter of, again, just gaining some of that confidence back. So, you know, I hope that he is able to. Obviously, I wish him the best, and whatever he does next, man, we respect it, and huge fans of Izzy, you know, at Desania. Again, just provided us with a lot of memories throughout the years. You know, back when I was starting into MMA, it's when he was on the come up. So, you know, watching him defeat all those legends, you know, before even he became a champion, you know, like Anderson Silva and stuff like that. Like he just was on another level. So, I mean, yeah, if he does retire, you know, shout out to him, bro. He doesn't owe us anything at all. So thank you for all those memories, man. All right, I'll stop yapping and I'll keep going. So, I mean, the rest of the card was okay. Shara Magomedov versus Michael Venom Page. That was a good fight. I did. I said Shara was going to win this fight in my predictions, but secretly I was rooting for MVP because, I mean, man, just seeing these Russians win over and over and over is fucking boring. You know, coming from a Chiefs fan. But it's different with Shara. You know, it's different because he's not really part of that Khabib and Islam community. You know, he kind of does his own thing, and he's obviously not a wrestler either. So that's kind of, you know, different from them guys. So he's not really a wrestler. He's more of a striker. So he is a little more exciting to watch than a lot of those guys, you know? So what exactly happened here? Well, I think what happened was, you know, I think MVP just kind of showed way more experience, way more fight IQ. You know, you kind of forget that he's had a long career over at Bellator before he came to the UFC. And I've said this about Shara before, man. I think he needs to work on his game a lot. He's got a long way to go. So I think they gave him they threw him into the wolves a little too fast right now. I think that MVP was a much higher level opponent. I think MVP's a top 5 guy. I think, in my opinion, I'm a big fan. I'm a little biased, but I want him to do well in the UFC, and I think he's definitely a top 5 guy. I mean, he could definitely be. Now, another thing I didn't mention in the past episode was that I don't know how I didn't notice, but MVP is typically a welterweight. And he's ranked at welterweight. He's 15, but he's ranked. And this fight was a middleweight. So that's one thing I completely forgot. He was unranked at middleweight, whereas Shara was ranked number 14. So now MVP has to be ranked in both welterweight and middleweight, which is fucking awesome. I mean, again, not a lot of people do that. He's already a super exciting guy. I think he's a guy that could stay busy. He doesn't really take damage that much. So he could stay busy, you know, fight every once in a while, and hey, keep 2 divisions busy. I mean, that's fucking awesome. You know, if he can do that, you love to see it. So shout out to him, and it's exciting to see MVP kind of spread his wings like that and see what, you know, because there's obviously some great potential matchups at middleweight as well. You know, you have Robert Whittaker, Vettori. You know, obviously you have Paulo Costa and stuff like that. So some of those fights could be very, very interesting. So I'm excited if he decides to take some of those fights at middleweight. But you know, whenever this happens too, it's kind of weird because, like, okay, he fought at middleweight, he's ranked at middleweight, but what does this does for his welterweight record now? To me, it does nothing. I mean, he's still gonna stay, maybe still gonna stay in the spot that he's at right now, and he kind of just doesn't go up. Maybe they give him one spot just just to kind of show some appreciation, but it doesn't do a lot for his record at a welterweight. So sometimes it's kind of like a give or take if you want to do that. If you say, well, I'm focused on my record in this division, So, but hey, shout out to him. It worked out. And again, if he can do that, by all means. But I think for someone his age, I think he should be focused on kind of climbing up the rankings in his division right now. I don't know if this is I don't know if this is a permanent move. I don't know if he will stay at middleweight. I don't know if I heard that in an interview. If you have, let me know what he said. But yeah, I don't know if this is a permanent move or if he's gonna again just bounce back and forth or just a one-time thing. Hey, being ranked above the Bishops is not bad at all. Like I said, he's gonna have a lot of good options. So busy he will be, and obviously that's great for us because we love when someone is busy and they give us fights. And every time MVP fights is I get excited. He's a phenomenal fighter. He's had some great matchups since he started in the UFC. I would have liked for him to kind of obviously done a little better. But hey, I think he's back in the win column. He won. Who did he lose to? He lost against Ian Gary, right? I think that's it. Did he lose someone before that? No, he didn't. So in the UFC, he won against Kevin Holland, lost against Gary, and then won now against Magomedov Shara. So shout out. Yeah. Hopefully he can get I'm glad he's got back in the winning column, and hopefully he can get better opportunities now. So sounds great. Then we had a heavyweight Sergey Pavlovich versus Jarinho Rosenstruck. It was good. I think the main thing that I wanted with this fight, it was unfortunately a decision. And I talked about it in the last episode how some of the heavyweight fights a lot of times go not the way we expected. I definitely had the under on this one. Just because you look at, especially Pavlovich, he's a knockout fucking artist. So I was kind of hoping for this to kind of end that way. And also, they're heavyweights, so they got gassed out by round 3. So, that's usually what happens. Again, if it's not a first round KO, it's a 3-round, slightly boring fight. Not boring, shout out to both of them. Dana kind of trashed it, but, I thought it was all right. Not the worst, but I thought it was all right. But I guess he didn't love the fight. So yeah, shout out to Sergey for getting the win. This could have potentially had some but some number one contender implications here, right? Because again, I talked about this multiple times, going over this whole John Jones fiasco and Tom Aspinall fiasco. The only thing to do here is to make the fight. So if we are just assuming right now that the fight is going to be made, which again, Dana White sounds like he really, really wants to make it. So I have high hopes. I definitely have high hopes. It sounds like he really wants to make it. Usually what he wants is what we get a lot of the time. So, I think he'll find a way. I think he's going to give John Jones. I think the main thing is money. I think John Jones is asking for a fuck ton of money, which he should. I think the UFC is still, compared to like boxing, for example. Boxing has these $50 million purses. You know what I mean? Like, and for athletes that are probably not as skilled as John Jones, Usyk, fucking Fury or Joshua, like those guys will probably piece John Jones up in in the ring, but on the octagon or in a street fight, John Jones will fuck him up. So but again, I think those guys don't work harder than John Jones. Those guys, I guarantee you, don't work harder than most of UFC guys. I think I think MMA training is definitely, I think, way more enduring and requires, I think, a way better cardio and gas tank, especially if you include wrestling, which John Jones does. So, if you want to look at it like who works harder, even if they do work more harder than John Jones, it's not by a lot. And the price difference is crazy, right? Like every time they fight, they're making $30-40 million a fight. I don't know how much John Jones made with the fighting of Stipe, but I think it wasn't that. I think it was maybe $5-6 million, if I'm probably being a little generous. And I know there was rumors when he was going to fight Ngannou that he was asking for I think 15 or 20 million or something like that. So I don't know how much he's asking right now for Tom, but I'm sure is more than like 10. Like I'm sure he wants a good purse, right? And he kind of deserves it. I mean, again, looking at if you treat him the GOAT, you call him the GOAT, but you're paying him this much compared to the GOATs of sports, like he's probably looking at like, I mean, like I'm sure it's not all about the money. I'm sure he's sad financially, right? But it's also like the work, it has to be justified. You know what I mean? So like, I think he definitely sees what other guys get paid, and he just says, hey, I mean, I work just as much. Why not? You know what I mean? So I guess it's kind of okay for him to be a little bit stubborn when it comes to that. You know what I mean? But also, don't be a fucking, you know, just take the fight. Also, don't take the fight. And I don't know, just the way he kind of handled the whole Tom Aspinall situation, I thought he took an L, right? And so far in the trash talk, in the leading up to the fight, I think John Jones is definitely taking the L's just because of his whole, demeanor against Tom Aspinall and how he didn't want to take interviews about him and stuff like that. And I think Tom Aspinall genuinely just said like, "Hey man, like I have nothing against you. I just want to find out who's the best in the world." And he said that at first, and yet, Tom Aspinall definitely said some trash talk after that, call him a chicken and stuff like that. But you know, it's whatever, bro. He's trying to sell the fight, and I think John Jones is taking a little bit too personal. But I think he just wants to get paid. I think if Dana White comes to him amount and the right date, he signs on that line. He signs on that line, and we get the fight. So hopefully we get it this year. But sorry, I kind of went on a rant there. But I mean, again, for that whole picture of the heavyweight division, you got Sergey Pavlovich, who was ranked number 5, Jarinho, who was ranked number 9. So it doesn't really do a lot for him as far as rankings go. But I mean, there's not a lot of people available that you can say, well, he has options. He has options. I don't think he has a lot of options. I think if he wants to keep just moving up, he either has Siragan, that could be one option. Volkov, that could be another option. I think they already fought, if I'm not mistaken. So he would have to, maybe do a rematch. Why do I have this window open of TurboTax? I don't need it. Let's see, Pavlovich. No, he hasn't fought Volkov. Oh yeah, he did fight. He lost against Volkov. So yeah, I forget shit sometimes. So yeah, I mean, potentially a Volkov rematch might be good for him. If not, again, maybe like a Siragan. I think that'll be great. So yeah, shout out to Sergey for getting that dub. Then we had Said Nurmagomedov versus Vinicius Oliveira. This one was crazy because, again, just kind of going with the Dagestani train. I did the fucking opposite. Okay, I took Said, or I took Said to win, but I also took Shara. But then I guess I was rooting more for MVP. I just knew Shara was gonna again, just being Dagestani and me like that. I was like, oh well, it's easy to bet on the Dagestanis, right? But again, I got kind of flipped because I rooted for Said. He lost against Vinicius Oliveira, who did a fantastic job at shutting down Said's game. And then, even though I bet for Shara, at the end I took MVP. So I mean, it kind of worked out. But fucking Vinicius Oliveira did a great job. Said just I think he got gassed. I think he got super gassed at the end of the first round. I think he kind of emptied the tank and he just wasn't able to do a lot. You know what I mean? So it was kind of crazy. And then Vinicius definitely, gave that first round away. But then after that, he was kind of just, did work, pieced him up. And it was a good fight. I mean, it wasn't a crazy fight. It was whatever. The total strikes were pretty even, 69 and 68. Said getting one more. And then the significant strikes were 38 versus 43 for Vinicius for getting about 5 more. So, I mean, pretty close fight. Pretty close fight. 1 takedown for Said and 3 for Vinicius. So, I mean, that's kind of obviously obviously that plays a huge factor when it comes to the points, right? And if the striking is that close, again, I always say it, and it sounds silly to say it, especially since I'm not a fighter, but like if you're evenly matched, like as a striker against another striker, like you have to get the edge up with wrestling. You have to. You have to implement it in your game. That's why, again, going back, I've talked about it a few times, but like that's why fighters like Sean O'Malley like eventually lose. You know what I mean? Because striking is just one aspect of the game. You have to have wrestling, especially when it comes to those 5-round fights. On the come up on 3-round fights, you might have the advantage, right? Because you can knock out somebody early and stuff like that. But on those deep waters, on the 5-round fights, you have to have the wrestling and that defense and stuff like that. So that's why it catches up to you. It really catches up to you. So, but yeah, I mean, shout out to Vinicius for getting that dub, man. So absolutely great, mixing up with the takedowns. So great. We had Mac Davis versus Fares Ziam. That was a good fight as well. Fares ended up taking the dub by decision. It was whatever fight, yeah, I mean, that was kind of the rest of the fight. We have a few other fun ones. Was Terrence McKinney versus Damir Hadzovic. Terrence McKinney getting the first round KO. Shout out. We also had a good fight. The one that I tuned in for when I started watching the card was Baghdad Grad versus Lucas Alexander. Round 2 KO for Grad. Nasty right hand, just boop, right down the middle, right on the chin. And Lucas Alexander went down, and that's all she wrote. So, shout out, man. All right, well, that was kind of a long one for UFC Saudi Arabia. I hope you guys are still here. But now we can talk about UFC 312. Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. Obviously being headlined by those two. And then the co-main, Zhang Wei Li versus Tatiana Suarez. Yeah, man, for Dricus, going back, looking at the first fight, I think a lot of people kind of wrote him out in that first fight, especially Dana White himself. He was saying how he thought Strickland won. And whenever you say that right after, it's kind of fucked. You kind of fucked your fighter. This guy that just won, this guy just fucking left a piece of him in the octagon, and you're going to say, I thought the other guy won. So, yeah, I mean, it's whatever. Obviously, on paper, he was a champ and he won. And then, hey, I think he makes a way better argument because now that he also defended the belt against the former champ, Izzy, it kind of gives him more of that credit. If this was his first title defense, because right now Sean Strickland is an underdog, plus 175. But that's because Dricus beat Izzy in a spectacular way, finished him. If that doesn't happen, if let's say Dricus takes a long pause and this is the first fight that he's defending the belt, he's definitely not huge, but he's definitely the underdog against Sean. Because again, a lot of people thought that Sean won that first fight. So it is what it is. On paper, I also kind of gave it to Sean. I remember saying, because I did a video about it, and I remember saying that I think I gave it to Sean as well. It was a close fight. I mean, it could have gone either way. Sometimes people like to easily throw the argument of like, oh, it was robbery. It is what it is. A lot of times it's a 50-50, bro, especially when it's just so close like that, It just comes down to, again, Dricus mixing up the wrestling, mixing up the striking, and landing. He was getting hit a lot. Sean Strickland, what he has going for him is his, like, super technical but basic jabbing, right? Boxing, right? Like just jabbing you, throwing a few, hooks and stuff like that every once in a while, but just jabbing you and making damage with that jab, bro. He has a heavy fucking jab. And, he's started busting up DDP. DDP was busted up at the end. Definitely like physical damage for that fight. DDP had more damage, absolutely. But Sean had that. I remember Sean had that nasty cut. But it wasn't really a cut that it was through a punch or anything. I think it was a headbutt, unfortunately. So, you got to also wonder, did that play a factor into the fight or into the judge's decision? So you got to wonder. But I think for this one, I think we're going to get a pretty similar fight than the first one. I kind of hate to admit it. I don't think we're going to see a finish from these two. I mean, I hope, you know what I mean? But I think that a lot of these two guys are not finishers. I mean, it kind of has me to say, even though DDP kind of has finished a lot of good people, he finished Robert Whitaker, he finished Izzy, so he's definitely has the advantage there. If this fight does get finished, it's by DDP, I think. But again, the main key here in this fight is going to be, if you guys are going to be pretty evenly on the striking, again, mix up the takedowns, end the rounds on top. Whoever is able to do that, this is such a technical fight at the top of this division. Like, these guys are clearly better. Like, this is the middleweight division is a clear difference between the top three, which up to a few months ago, obviously that's just Izzy, not anymore, but that's Izzy, Strickland, and Dricus. Like, those three are clearly better than like Paulo Costa, right? Clearly better than, like, hurts me to say it because I'm a huge fan, but like Robert Whitaker. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are just kind of in their own little league. You know what I mean? At the top of the division, and they kind of fought each other a while for there. You know what I mean? Those kind of like a little triangle of love right there going with those guys. But they're just miles ahead than a lot of their competitors. So again, it's going to be interesting to see now what Imavov can do and what Hamza can do. But I mean, for like other contenders like Marvin Vettori, like, he's there they're just there. You know what I mean? These guys are miles ahead. I feel like in other divisions, a number 7 guy could actually have a good shot against a number 2 or number 3 guy. You know what I mean? But in this division, I think it's clear who is at the top. And I think these guys are way ahead than everybody else. Like, for example, I'm going to move on, but like another example is like Jared Cannonier. Like, I doubt Jared Cannonier beats DDP. You know what I mean? He beat Strickland, right? If I'm not mistaken, he defeated Strickland. So, I mean, he might be the odd exception there. Yeah, he defeated Strickland, but he's lost 2 in a row now. He lost against Imavov, and he lost against Borrallo. Oh, Borrallo's a good contender in that fight. I forget about him in that division. So, yeah, I mean, he might be an exciting guy to look out for as well. But, again, just miles ahead for the top 3. Sorry, I'm kind of yapping here. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a good fight. Again, it's going to come down to who can mix it up the best with the wrestling. If anything, I think who has the finishing advantage is definitely Dricus. He could definitely... I think I might see a similar outcome to the Izzy fight where he rocks Strickland. Although Strickland is hard to fucking put away, bro. He's just durable. You know what I mean? Unless you're Pereira, he's just fucking durable. Like, that's the way to describe him. He lasts, and he's made out of rubber. He gets punched, you know what I mean? But he doesn't really go down a lot. It kind of just shows, again, how powerful Alex Pereira is. You know what I mean? So, if Dricus is able to kind of pull off some situation where they're scrambling, again, maybe knocking him down or maybe just getting a takedown, he could finish the fight with a submission. I think another thing that Dricus proved is he's got phenomenal jiu-jitsu, which I definitely give that advantage for him as well versus Strickland. Strickland is a good wrestler, but I don't think he really has a lot of jiu-jitsu that much. You know what I mean? So I guess we're going to have to wait and see. As far as my official prediction for this one, I'm going to go with DDP. I think DDP is, I don't know, he's just more athletic. He's more explosive. He has more tools to win. He's got the submissions. He's got the knockouts. Could happen. I think it's a DDP finish. That's my official prediction. A DDP finish. How? I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say TKO. Maybe. TKO. I don't know. But again... Well, I just kind of predicted that, but then at the beginning of the breakdown, I said how I thought it was going to be the same way as as the last fight. So sorry for contradicting myself. Yeah, but I think I changed my mind. I think I'm going to go with the DDP finish because that's what I want to see. Like a lot of the times I'm like, when I predict these fights, I'm like, well, I'm predicting like a win by decision, but like that's boring. You know what I mean? That's absolutely boring. So even if I'm wrong, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to predict a finish or something like that just to make it fun, you know what I mean? And obviously if you bet money that way, you also make a little more money because I'm I'm sure DDP by KO, it's way more money than just straight money line. So should be fun. Should be fun fight anyway. So next up we had Zhang Weili versus Tatiana Suarez. Looking at both these ladies' records, I'm actually kind of excited for this fight. A lot of the times, when we get some strawweights fighting, it's can be a little bit of a sleeper. You know what I mean? It's kind of a bathroom break, if you want to call it that. But not this one. This one I think is going to be a good fight. Looking at this both ladies' records, they both have phenomenal fights recently coming up to this, and both of these ladies are finishers, which is what I like to see. Tatiana Suarez has a very impressive record of 2 submissions right now in a row. She's completely undefeated, having defeated some great names like Jessica Andrade, Carla Esparza, Alexa Grasso. Like, this girl is actually top tier in this division. Just now, she happened to, break through and fight for the title. So, I mean, I think she's fully deserving of this. When it comes to this strawweight fights with females and stuff like that, a lot of times you wonder, like, they don't have that many people in rotation for that. You know what I mean? Because, like, especially when someone's dominant, kind of like Zhang Weili or Shevchenko, when someone's dominant like that, like, they just run out of fighters, I think. You know what I mean? So they don't have a lot of options. But so they would give a shot to like a number 7 girl or number 6 girl or something like that. You know what I mean? But in this case, I think that Tatiana Suarez is 100%. I mean, she's ranked number 1. So yeah, I don't know why I'm even yapping about that, but she is absolutely deserving of this title shot. When you look at her record, it's pristine, bro. And I love to see records like that. And I mean, if you want to compare them paper to paper, it's better than Zhang Weili, I think. Although Zhang Weili has had, I think, higher profile fights and more for the title, obviously, you know what I mean, against some legends as well. So, but the only kind of chips she has on her record are the losses against Rose Namajunas. Other than that, she's also completely undefeated. So that's why I'm very excited for this fight. It's because we're gonna get 2 damn near undefeated, 2 damn near perfect records here, and both finishers. I mean, if you look at Zhang Weili's record, again, Tatiana had the submissions, and she also has KOs all over the place. Zhang Weili has 2 decisions in a row, which is not great. But if you just go down her list, I mean, you see KOs, you see submissions, KOs, TKOs, and you obviously see some decisions mixed in there. But for the most part, both of these guys are finishers. I hope we get a finish. That's all I'm going to say here. A lot of times these 5-round female fighters can be, again, not the most entertaining. With all the respect, don't get me wrong, there's some female fighters and some fights that are fucking amazing and better than some men's, but some Carla Esparza, Rose Namajunas situation could definitely play out, and I don't want to see that, especially because this card is already not that stacked, bro. Like, other than these 2 fights, like, that's pretty much it. So it's not a stacked card at all. But my official prediction for this one, I guess, would be you know what? I'm gonna go with Tatiana Suarez. Just to mix it up a little bit, and to kind of just give it to an underdog, and I kind of want to see an upset. So wait, they're not, bro. They're even money. She's not even an underdog. That's crazy. Wow, she's a -120. That's fucking wild. That's crazy. I might go Tatiana by finish just to see kind of what that gives me, But yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but I think that Tatiana can get it done. And again, I just want to see some. I know it's not an upset in gambling wise because they're even money, but when you look at them, I mean, Zhang Weili has definitely the bigger profile, the more famous, especially in China. She's a superstar, and her last fight against the other Chinese girl had like some crazy amount of views, like I think like in the millions, billions. I think like the entire China was watching or something. Like, it was fucking wild. So it was fucking crazy, and I think she's definitely the bigger profile here, so it wouldn't be an upset in betting. aspect, but it definitely would be in profile aspect. Obviously Zhang Weili being the more popular girl. So we'll have to see that, and I'll definitely be putting some money on Tatiana by finish. So yeah, that's my official prediction. Is Tatiana Suarez is gonna finish Zhang Weili to become the new strawweight champion of the world. So shout out. Then we have Justin Tafa versus Talison Teixeira. I think this guy might be doing his debut in the UFC. Yep, he is coming out of a win of the Dana White Contender Series, going against Justin Tafa, who was a dangerous dude in the heavyweight division. He's coming off a loss, unfortunately. Who did he lose to? Carl Williams back in March, and he hasn't fought since. But other than that, the guy has a great record. He has 3 KOs in a row. He lost 2 before that, unfortunately, but then before that, he's got straight KOs too. If you want to go back to his previous UFC years, I mean, he's got KO, 3 in a row wins, and then loses by KO, and then KOs another guy. So wins 4 out of his first 5 professional fights, which with that KO rate, I mean, that's not bad. That's like a 90% KO rate, which is not bad at all. Loses 2 splits, unfortunately, 1 split and 1 unanimous. And then again, two KOs in a row, 1 no contest, and then another KO in a row. So, yeah, I mean, this guy is definitely a finisher, definitely going for the kill. I'm gonna have to go Justin Tafa here just because we don't really know anything about Teixeira. Is he related to Glover Teixeira though? If he is, then that's a whole different conversation because he might train with him and then he might be a savage. But I mean, honestly, looking at his record, he is fucking. I mean, he's got 1, 2. Oh fuck, where is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins in a row, all finishes. Let me say that again. 7 wins in a row, all finishes. I mean, there's a reason why I just noticed this too. He's a favorite in this fight, even though this is his UFC debut. I mean, putting some money on Justin Tafa might not be a bad idea just because he's great and he's the underdog. You can make some money there. But I'm sure getting this dude by KO might be a good bet because that's all he does. He's got, again, 6 KOs in a row, 7, and then 7 wins in a row. And the first one was by submission. So he can submit too. And I don't know if Justin Tafa has the necessary means to stop a submission attempt. You know what I mean? So I guess I'm just gonna. I don't know. I'm gonna choose. I'm gonna choose Justin Tafa, but this might be one that like the day off when I bet the money, I might actually go Talison, just because he might have a better odds for like a first round KO might be a good bet or something like that, just to make some money. So we'll see. I mean, as far as the rest of the card, man, that's pretty much it, guys. We don't really have not a lot of names that I recognize. It's going to be a long night. Bro, there's so many fights before these prelims go crazy, bro. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Bro, like this, there's 11 fights before we get to the top 3, which are honestly the best ones and the ones that I care about the most. I mean, we have a few other ones like Jimmy Crute. That might be a good fight against Rodolfo Bellato. I think I might give that one to Jimmy Crute. And then we have Jack Jenkins versus Gabriel Santos. So I don't know a lot about these 2 gentlemen, but Jack Jenkins is coming off of a win against Burns, not Gilbert Burns, Herbert Burns. Before that, he lost, and he's got a decent record. Lost 1 out of his last 5, so not bad at all. And Gabriel Santos has just a slightly worse record. Lost 2 out of his last 5, and he's more newer in the UFC. He only has 3 fights in the UFC. But yeah, that'll be all for today, guys. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and if you're still listening to this point, I appreciate you so much. As always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave me a comment. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. Take care. Wash your face.